ambitious person and you have dreams and goals, but you don't make enough progress, and this leaves you frustrated, sad, like nothing is going your way, wondering what on earth is wrong with you, then this video is for you, because we will do a short diagnostic to look at what is actually happening and what you're really investing your time, money, attention, and thoughts into. Because that might not be the same thing as the goal that you believe you're working towards. In case we have met, hi, I'm Gwen Bach. I have a master's degree in applied neuroscience. And right now, I am at the bottom of this pit right with you. Because for the past 3 years, I've been trying to build a business, an online business, with no success. Menopause hormones had me gain 10 kilos, and they won't just go away. And I just had a job offer at slightly above German minimum wage. Now, this is my personal hell as an ambitious person with no progress and no light at the end of the tunnel. This is video 3 of this series. I'm not quite sure how long it'll be yet. But if you have not yet watched the previous videos 1 and 2, please do so, because this will make so much more sense if you watch all of them. And I've put them into a playlist and it's linked below. Okay, so let us together look at reality versus illusion. And I know this might be a tad uncomfortable, but before we do the diagnostic, I want to explain why we're doing this in the first place. Yay, I'm a scientist. Because, having dreams is obviously not a bad thing. Being able to imagine a different future can give us hope, and it can help us think beyond the life that we have right now. But, there's always a but, right? There's quite an interesting difference between having a positive expectation about the future and having a positive fantasy about the future. So it's expectation versus fantasy here. Oettingen and Meyer in 2002 looked at the difference. Positive expectations are more connected to reality, so you believe that something is likely to happen because you have the skill, you're doing the work, and you're making some kind of progress. On the other hand, a positive fantasy, that is where you imagine this amazing, dreamy outcome, and we enjoy that imagined future without dealing with the rather inconvenient reality that we need to put a truckload of work into getting there. And they found that positive expectations predicted more effort and better performance, but positive fantasies predicted the opposite. And then Kappes and Oettingen in 2011 found that these positive fantasies can even reduce the energy we put into pursuing the thing we want, which sounds counterintuitive considering the success gurus tell us, imagine your success and see yourself already living your dream and all of that BS. But if the fantasy already gives us some of those yummy emotional rewards, then our brain is more unlikely to muster up the energy to actually do something constructive towards our goals. Like, we don't like that, but, and again, I'm not saying dreaming is bad or that you should never imagine a better future. But we need to look at whether the dream is leading to organized action or whether imagining it has become a replacement for our action. When I was still working as a therapist a few years ago, I sometimes saw this pattern with teenagers. So they would tell me that they want to become a famous singer or famous actor, but they didn't take singing or acting lessons, and they didn't practice singing day in, day out, and they didn't join the choir or the theater club. And yes, of course, they're teenagers, but our society today encourages dreaming over reality in kids when we need to teach them that their confidence will come from their competence and action and not imaginary pipe dreams. But alas, we adults can fall into this trap too. We just make it sound more sophisticated. And I'm guilty of this. I have done this for years too. I want to build an online business for almost 10 years now. And even when I still had my brick and mortar therapy practice, and for a very long time, this was, and if I'm really ruthless honest here with myself now, a mere fantasy. Because I did not take the needed action except consuming courses and content on how other people build an online business. And I never felt ready. And learning felt really productive. I could tell myself that I'm working towards my goal. But when I look at it now, my actual behavior did not match my goal. So I created this tool and I modified it from CBT and other therapy tools I used way back in my practice. And I started to match my thoughts and actions towards this goal. Now, in the past few months, something has changed. I started creating YouTube videos regularly, and you can see that. And I'm trying things out, like creating shorts and reels, and I realized that is not quite for me at this moment. So I'm learning what is possible for me now and what not. And I'm still far from having my profitable online business, but I'm on the way because I'm taking consistent action. It could be more, and I could be way more organized, but alas, right? This is progress. And this is what we want to find out with this diagnostic tool. And please be brutally honest with yourself here. We are taking current action and reality over the past few weeks and months. So we humans, and we're awesome at deceiving ourselves. But now decide to be honest and real with yourself because you're watching this, because you want to achieve this goal, right? So here are the 8 questions. I'll pause this here so you can screenshot it. And I will also put them in the description below. You only need to write down 3 things for each of these questions, really just a few words. And if you're watching this while you're in public transport or walking your dog or somewhere where you cannot sit down with pen and paper, obviously don't try to do this right now. Take the screenshot and come back to it later, but really do this. The 8 questions are, number 1, what do you spend the most money on? Number 2, what do you spend most time on? Then, what do you read, watch, listen to most? What do you think about most? Where are you most organized? And where are you most reliable, disciplined, and focused? And what do you internally dialogue most about? What do you talk about most with others? Now, obviously, there are givens in life like sleep or paying your rent, taxes, that are non-negotiables. But let's keep them aside and focus on things that are our choices, like time on social media, exercise, family, kids, working on your business, or money spent on restaurants, courses, books, or organized. You might be messy in your garage, but your clothes, books, and record collection is very organized. If you can do it now, pause the video, answer the questions, and then come back. Have you answered the questions? Now look at the answers and count repeating categories, like maybe you spend a lot of money on books and courses. Your library is organized and you spend every evening reading and learning for 3 hours, and you spend hours a day thinking about the materials you're learning, and you talk with your friends about what you're learning. You can see it repeats in the multiple domains. Same with take social media or baking cookies or working on your business, filming your videos or your dog. And the next step here is we look at one that does not serve the desired outcome we have. So in my case, drum roll, It is excessive reading of online news. Not only am I wasting a lot of time, but those news, they also frustrate me. By the way, I'm currently creating a workbook that will go with this video series, and you will be able to follow along whenever you want to reprogram one of your apps. So if you're watching this before I'm done, there is a link to a wait list, and I will send you an email once it's ready. Otherwise, I will have an Amazon link in the description below. Okay, now back to my excessive news reading. Because identifying the behavior is useful, but knowing that I can read too much news has not exactly stopped me from reading too much news. My weekly screen time report has presented me with solid evidence today. So now we're going to use WOOP. WOOP stands for Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan. It's the practical version of mental contrasting with implementation intentions. And Zhu et al. In 2026 used this exact process with students who were procrastinating. Compared with positive thinking alone, the students using WOOP experienced less task aversiveness and became more willing to start, which is quite useful because willingness to start is exactly what disappears when we're stuck in this avoidance loop. So let's go through it step by step. W stands for wish. Choose one wish that is important to you, a little challenging but still feasible, and not your entire dream life, just one small, tiny doable thing. For me, it would be, for example, tomorrow morning, I want to spend the first 1 or 2 hours working on my workbook rather than doom scrolling news. And that matters to me, and it is possible too. And considering my current news reading time spent a day, it is definitely a little challenging. O stands for outcome. So now ask yourself, what would be the best possible outcome if I achieved this goal? And I'm not really a fan of the word wish here, but had they used goal instead, the acronym would be GOOP. So for me, the best outcome would be that I had made visible progress on the workbook. And thus, I feel that I was moving forward again. And not just thinking and dreaming, but I have spent my morning creating something. Now take a moment and imagine that outcome. What would you see, feel? What would you experience? And what would be different? And how would that make you feel? Now, this is the positive part, but we do not stop here and spend the afternoon enjoying our imaginary success. No, because now comes the contrasting part. And O stands for obstacle. Ask yourself, what is the main obstacle inside me, my head, that could prevent me from doing this thing? And this is not necessarily the obvious external obstacle. For me, it is not the existence of news, and I cannot blame my phone either. But what happens is that I sit down in my office here to work on the workbook. And then I think about everything else that needs to get done, preferably yesterday. Say, there are videos I need to plan, my website, this workbook, and of course, building the entire business and all the things I have not yet completed. And there is too much to do and far too little time in my head. And I feel overwhelmed and probably a bit anxious too. And reading the news gives me somewhere else to put my attention for a while. And it's a very, very effective distraction. So my internal obstacle is not that I enjoy reading the news so much. I really don't. It is my way to cope with that feeling of overwhelm when I'm about to begin the work. And that is quite a different problem, and it reminds me a bit of Fuxia Seroy's work on emotion regulation and procrastination. So now, imagine your obstacle for a moment. When does it appear? And what are you thinking? What's happening? what do you usually do next? Again, we need to be honest and not deceiving ourselves here. Next, P stands for plan. Now think of one specific thing you can do when that obstacle appears, and not fuzzy things like I will be more disciplined or I will stop procrastinating, but what are you actually going to do now, really? And then put the obstacle and the action into an if-then sequence. For example, if I feel overwhelmed by everything I need to do, then I will work on the next one section of the workbook for just 5 minutes. Obviously, this will not build my entire business, but it can interrupt the automatic escape into the news and help me begin the thing I actually want to do. So now take the repeating category you identified in your diagnostic before and write down your own WOOP or GOOP if you prefer the term goal versus wish to. What is my doable goal? What is my desired outcome? And what is the main obstacle in my head? And if that obstacle appears, what precisely will I do? And then write your if-then implementation intention plan. If ... then I will ... This is the difference between a positive fantasy and mental contrasting. And we do allow ourselves to imagine the future we want, but then we bring that future into contact with the reality currently standing in our way. And instead of hoping that tomorrow we will magically behave like a different person, we decide what we will do when that obstacle inevitably turns up again. In the next video, we will take this one repeating behavior and zoom into it even further. We will look at the underlying patterns and what exactly triggers you and how to interrupt it reliably. It's a deceptively simple but very powerful tool. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.